This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And I love it when I bring a guest on who not only has been on the show before, but actually was our first ever guest all the way back in season 1. And so for that reason alone, I am truly grateful. I've actually known this individual in real life, like offline, since for the best part of almost 2 decades, which is really scary given she's 23
We're
years.
not that old. We don't
Not
look.
that
Must have
old.
been. We met when we were 11, surely,
Primary
professional.
school, infants, kindergarten.
Yeah.
This is Jo Gregory. Welcome back, Jo.
Thank you very much for having me. I feel like it's been ages since I've been on. Actually, it wasn't. It wasn't that long, was it? And congrats. This podcast is insane. Like, I recommend it to everybody.
Thank you. Well, anyone that's listening is already listening, which is fantastic. But I am very humbled because we are now in season 5, which blows my head, given that we started it by accident with you and COVID going, oh my God, we need to help recruiters.
To talk about something. Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck are we going to do? There's nothing going on. And it has been one of the greatest joys, quite literally, of the last 4 years for me, because I get to spend a day a month interviewing people like yourself who, for one reason or another, we never seem to have time to actually see each other in real life, which is ludicrous. Now, I'm guessing, because of the way algorithms work, that most of my community will already be familiar with you, Jo. However, we do have a global audience. So for anyone that's been living under a rock, please can you just give us a very quick synopsis as to what you do and who you are?
Yes, I will. So my name is Jo Gregory. I am a recruitment trainer and a performance coach. It's as simple as that. I don't profess to, I don't use massive big job titles or anything, but I am a recruitment trainer. So I spend my life working with recruitment businesses all over the world, helping their consultants, helping their managers, helping their business leaders to improve their productivity, their performance, their environment, their culture, anything that's required to produce high performance environments. I'm also Associate Director at iIntro, which is a retained recruitment platform, and founder of the Hummingbird Project, which is our freetail clothing bank.
Oh my God, which we talked about on the last show. So we might not have time to cover about Hummingbird today. So if you want to know more about that, if you go back through the archive and look for Jo Gregory, or if you just search it on your search engine, we do talk about that because it's the most phenomenal, incredible project that you've been proud to be part of for a very long time. But in terms of iIntro, I was actually on your show.
Yes.
This year, was it 2023? I can't remember now.
Yeah, last year, I think last year.
And the fact that you, similar to me in my day job, you sit agnostically servicing our industry. So you are in the privileged position. When I think about why should somebody come and listen to the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast, it's because they want to be the best performing person they can be, wherever they're at in their career. That's how I see it. You are here, you're giving up your 20, 30 minutes of your day to try and learn something today that will elevate you and make you better, whether that's as a leader, as a business owner, as a newbie recruiter, or even just as a human being. That would be quite nice. Yeah. And I think that's where guests like you are so valuable, because you do kind of have this amazing bird's eye view. And I think we were just talking off camera. We could talk about a million subjects in about 5 minutes. But we were talking about it. This is a very well-timed podcast topic. Because I think as we share this towards the end of 2024, I don't know about you, from what you're hearing from your clients, but me, I'm still a biller. I still recruit day to day. This has been one of the most erratic and challenging recruitment markets I think I've ever worked through. And I've been in recruitment for 26 years. And I think for a lot of people listening, they might have just started in recruitment, or they might be 2 or 3 years and having come through the bubble of 2022 going, what the hell? So can you just give the context of, as we share this now for my audience and your audience as well, where do you see the recruitment industry right now going into 2025?
I think this year has been hard. I think it has been really hard. I think it's been hard for consultants. I think it's been hard for recruitment businesses. I think it's sort of taken us all by surprise a little bit. I think we sort of came out of COVID. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's over." We sort of rode the crest of the wave coming out of COVID, but businesses started to, re-recruit and, fill their offices back up, or remotely, as the case may have been. I think it's just a really it's a really tetchy marketplace at the minute. You know, I don't think the candidate market's great. I don't think a lot of people, you know, if people are still looking, there's still a lot of uncertainty around politically and economically and whether people should be moving or not.
Yep.
I don't think businesses are kind of, I don't know. I mean, some are recruiting, some aren't. But I feel that there's a big disparity at the minute between what clients are looking for and what candidates want. And then recruiters are kind of stuck in the middle, being really frustrated, going, I've kind of got jobs and I'm finding it difficult to find candidates, but I've kind of got some candidates, but I can't get them to stick together. You know, the remote working, the hybrid working, the massive disparity in salaries and stuff. I just sense a lot of that, but I sense a lot of reasons why recruitment isn't working at the moment. I'm not hearing a lot of people talking about why it is working, and that's based on one or two things. I think it's either that recruitment isn't working, and I'm always the kind of the last person to blame the market. You know, I think we need to, when you're pointing a finger, there's always three fingers pointed back at you. So I think we also need to look at why, as an industry, we're all just, I think everyone's just knackered. I think there's a lot of negativity in the market. There's a lot of reasons why clients aren't recruiting, candidates aren't taking jobs and stuff. And I just think everyone's quite worn out. And you know, the topic you said to me, you know, what do you want to talk about? And the first thing, I always want to talk about BD, because I think BD is important. Candidate generation, being consultative, you know, providing a great service for your candidates and clients, and just sticking your head above the parapet and coming away from just sending CVs to people and order taking. But all that aside, you know, I think our levels of resilience as an industry are really down. I think that comes from COVID. You know, none of us are really coming back from COVID, being expected to come back from COVID straight away. And then I just think it's been a really rocky marketplace since then. I'm hoping 2025 looks a bit better. I think Q1 of 2025 should look better. I think everyone was kind of hoping Q3 and Q4 of this year would, but I think it's just taking a bit longer. But you know, I'm no sort of like political pundit. But I do just think that as an industry, there are some things that we could talk about around resilience and creating resilient recruiters who've either been in the industry for a while and have maybe finding that they're less resilient. That can manifest itself in a number of different ways. Or people who are coming into this industry who probably just need to brace themselves, because this isn't an easy job, is it? You know, being the job of a recruiter, I think, is actually quite complex. And I think it demands a set of skills and traits and behaviors and abilities that I think is underestimated if you're not in recruitment.
I agree. And it's interesting that I'm going to start on that last point, actually, because I got an email yesterday from somebody who's a professional. They're actually in the medical profession, as in, you know, very senior up in the medical profession. And they were asking whether or not they could send me their details because they're looking to transfer their skill set into the recruitment industry. And the first thing I said was, why the hell would you want to do that?
Yeah.
And they said, well, because they feel they're falling out of the healthcare service and all these other factors. And I did everything I could to really put them off. And then obviously explained I don't represent people who've got no recruitment experience, but I'm more than happy to signpost them, which is exactly what I did. It didn't put them off. And I thought, well, at the heart of their job right now, they have to be very resilient. And I think, you know, bringing back into other elements of what you just said before we sort of talk through your points that you want to go through today, I think anyone listening to this who has got more than 5 years recruitment experience will know that we do go through cycles in recruitment. However, the cycle was totally disrupted by COVID, and that's the problem, because nobody predicted what would happen in 21 and 22. Nobody predicted. I think everyone was talking about the W effect, and that didn't actually happen. What happened was this insane curve of no one hired for 6 months in 2020. So everyone was like, shit, mass panic hiring. Then you had the salary bubble. You then had skill shortages across, not just STEM, across every single industry. You then had obviously the tech bubble bursting. You had there's been a lot of political and economic uncertainty, certainly since the crypto crash. And then we've got obviously all the conflict that's happening in the Middle East, Ukraine, Russia, all things actually that you and I would sit there and go, they're all out of our control. So why are we saying that? But actually what it has created is this culture of uncertainty, which if you are an ethical person means that when you've got your unicorn candidate ringing you who's in a job, you're going, actually, I feel really uncomfortable moving you from jobs because you're the main breadwinner for your family. And I'm not 100% sure that this company will still be in business in a year because nobody really knows. And I think that's the narrative that I've seen for the last 24 months, and I am neither a political person nor am I an economist, but all I can see are trends, and all I can see are trends which I'm sure are similar trends. If people are investing in a service like yours, generally speaking, they have probably invested in recruiting a senior hire, which is what I do day to day. I work in the senior market. And I would say what we've seen this last Q3 and going into the last quarter and heading into new year, recruitment companies that have survived have put foundations in place to be able to bounce back. I don't think we'll ever see a bounce like 2022, and I actually kind of hope that we don't.
Yeah.
What do you think about my synopsis?
No, I think it's spot on. I obviously I'm going to say this because this is what I do for a living, but I think that all businesses should really look internally now, not just at what training are they giving for their guys, what support, what infrastructure do they have, what measurements do they have? You know, I mean, one of the things we're going to talk about today when we talk about resilience is, you know, it's making sure that you've got the right processes in place and systems. So I did a session with Rebecca Shannon the other day, and she was talking about systems and how I love the idea of systems rather than processes because it makes it sound more three-dimensional. You know, do you have the right systems in place to build success, and what does that success look like, and how are you going to measure it? And I think that those things help us to feel safe and in control of what we can control. And that, of course, in turn then helps you to build your resilience levels. And the other thing we've got to remember about people being resilient is that there's a lot more to them than what you see in the office. And there's so much going on outside of still prices are going up, you know, we're all being squeezed. So that actually our levels of resilience are probably being set outside of work as well as in work. So what can we do as organizations to help to create psychologically safe and solid and robust infrastructures that help people to be resilient? Because when you've got resilient people, I mean, the definition of resilient is to move past obstacles and challenges.
Yep.
You know, it's bounce back ability. It's the ability to cope with tough events. So we should, whatever's happening in the market, we will adapt, we'll flex, we'll create plan Bs and plan Cs. Yeah. And that's what we do as an industry because we have to. Yeah. When you've got really low levels of resilience, that's hard because you become consumed by the challenge, or the obstacle becomes unmovable. And I think this isn't one obstacle. This is multiple obstacles, multiple challenges in the way. And suddenly it's become even more difficult. And it's consistent and it's relentless. It's one problem after another. So being able to be resilient in recruitment is really important. Being resilient just in everyday life is important.
I was just about to say, I think that would be my summation. And I think having fortitude is one of the biggest human assets we can ever have in order to survive and thrive. But that's a whole different podcast. And if you haven't read Bruce Daisley's book, Fortitude, I suggest you do. He was on my show in 2021 when he launched that book. And it is a game-changing book when it comes to mindset around fortitude rather than just resilience. So talk to me about your map that you have, that you showed me off camera or on camera, but before we recorded, as to what we can do to build resilience in ourselves as recruiters and leaders.
Okay. So when we first talked, I think we were going to talk about BD. We were going to say, how can you be resilient when it comes to BD? But it doesn't really matter what you're doing. I mean, I'll make some BD references as we go through, but it doesn't really matter. It's being resilient on your desk, I think. So I want to sort of focus on that really. And there are 100 different things that we could look at. What I've tried to do is just to boil it down to something that's quite easy to follow, something that's just quite a simple formula or a simple recipe that we could follow.
Good.
Which is kind of a good way of just living your life in recruitment, I think. Keep it simple, you know.
Totally.
Trying to reinvent the wheel. That happens a lot. The thing about resilience is, so this is the 6 Ps, which I thought was quite cool to have Ps. I like things that alliterate, or 6 of these and 4 of them. So I'm going to boil it down to 6 Ps. The first one's really important, which is purpose. So when you have a sense of purpose, you have a North Star, you have something that is driving you towards a goal or a purpose, your why. You know, Simon Sinek says, he's somewhere up here, start with the why. And you can have business wise, you can have life wise. You might be sat there thinking, I don't know why I get up every day. You know, a lot of us do, and it drives us forwards. And I know a few people who refer to it more like the North Star, you know. That's really important. As a business, you need to have purpose and goals. As an individual, you need to have purpose and goals. It's been proven that those people who have goals, not just a plan, a purpose, but a plan to get there, push obstacles and barriers out of the way, or don't even see them, don't see them or get bogged down in them as much as those who are heading towards a goal. They have a vision and they have a goal and they have a sense of purpose. So I think that's really important. Now, this doesn't have to be...
Before you move on to the next point, just another, if anyone's listening that enjoys podcasts and books, you need to follow Ryan Holiday. He's the Daily Stoic. That's his podcast. And he also wrote The Obstacle is the Way. And it was my COVID book that somebody recommended to me as we went into lockdown in March 2020. And it was a game changer of a book. It's actually really easy to read. You don't need to be a philosophical person to read it. Joe's nodding away. And it is he's brilliant to follow on Instagram if you don't want to go and listen to his podcast, because he shares little snippets. And having a stoical mindset is something that I think every recruiter, if you look at top billers, they will have a stoical mindset. So that was a little, sorry to interrupt, back to you.
No, I think that's a great point. I'm going to slide this book in as we speak. This is always on my desk, the founding mother of growth mindset, Carol Dweck. It's always there because, I mean, there's loads of building blocks, isn't there? You know, if you're resilient, you tend to have high levels of emotional intelligence, which means you've probably got a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. So I think those are kind of like cornerstones. Purpose is everything. I don't even know if you can see it. There's a book up there, Women Who Win. So I wrote a chapter in that book, but my chapter was all about purpose because it is defining. It could just be could be a short-term goal. You know, if you're finding that you're lacking motivation, then what am I doing this for? You know, it could be a holiday, it could be a car, it could be something for your family, it could be a life purpose. It doesn't matter what it is, but if you can find that thing on the horizon that you're working towards, it doesn't just help with motivation, but it helps with discipline, which is really important. Motivation will get you started, but motivation is a feeling and it's fleeting. And we all know what that feels like 3 days after you've decided you're going to run every day and every excuse under the book, all these convenient narratives are coming in as to why you shouldn't do stuff. Same with things like BD, calling candidates, doing anything in the recruitment process that you're not motivated to do that day. You've got to cling on to your purpose. Why am I doing it? And it will drive you. It will help you to do the things that you don't want to do or that aren't normal or that aren't usual for you to do. The purpose is massive. That's the first big one, really. Once you've got a purpose, you need to think about planning, because without a plan, we're lawless. We're all over the place. We like to think that we don't like rituals and routines and plans, but actually we do. I mean, look what happened to us about 4 weeks after COVID. It was great for the first few weeks, and then suddenly we're all sat there in our pajamas and we didn't know what we were doing. And it's actually very, very unnerving psychologically to not have plans in place. So set your purpose, your goal, whatever it is you want to achieve, and then put some plans in place. What do I want to achieve? How am I going to do it? What are all the things, critical success factors, things that I need to do every day, week or month? And then how am I going to plan that into a day plan? I was working with a guy a few weeks ago. So he's the managing director of a recruitment business based out in the US. And as a business, they are tapping into the retained market. They're not bringing their contingent clients with them. They want to build this whole new thing. And they just didn't have a system or a plan or anything. And so I've worked with them on a plan, spoke to him again last week. He was like a changed man. You know, he was like, I feel like I'm in control. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I've got a plan. I've got systems in place. And I feel like I know where I need to get to. I just have more confidence to get there now. And he'd just gone laser-like focus. And it was so lovely to see.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm writing these down as we're going along. So I hope if you're listening now, if you're not in a position to write, get your notes on your phone. So we've got purpose, we've got planning.
I can show everyone. I was doing a coaching session with someone earlier on, and I was like, I'm going to make a flip book, because the amount of pictures that I draw when I'm doing stuff, like I just have like,
oh yeah, wow, love it.
I create like a flip book for recruitment. That'd be good. So yes, purpose and then planning. I'm going to start jumping around in my numbers, which is, you know, why not? Processes. So you've got to have good processes in place. So as a business, again, we're talking about kind of processes and systems. What systems and processes do you have in place that are going to enable productivity and performance? And you know, even just as a recruiter sat on a desk, your BD, what is your BD process? What systems do you have in place to do BD? You know, and making sure you've got all those processes and things in place. As a business, what processes do you have to build high performance pathways within your organization? Because again, purpose, you know where you're going. Plan, I've got a plan to get there. Processes enable me to get there. That's like the machine, you know, that's the innards, the machine that's going to enable you to get there. So you've got to make sure that you've got good processes within your business or within your desk or within everyday life.
Yep.
You know, so if I want to be healthier and have more dopamine and I want to be happier as a person, what are my processes? What am I going to put in place that's going to help me to get there? And again, it's habitual. It creates habits. It creates routine, which is good for us. It helps us to feel settled. It helps us to control the controllables.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah. Without process, it's chaos. And that's where, as a rec to rec, what I've seen over the last 2 years since the market's become much more challenging, and this will resonate, I know, with at least one listener, you're not aware of what your process has been because you came into the market in the post-boom COVID times.
Yeah.
You need to follow a process. But actually, the best and most enduring recruiters and leaders of recruitment companies are those that have the best processes. And we're not talking about spending every penny on every subscription to every tech out there. We're talking about, if I do this, this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. And it's the steps that will make you successful when the market's challenging.
Yeah,
And it will elevate you. And I think that's where I've always known that the process that we run at Key Recruitment, for example, makes us really different in the market, because I know hand on heart that on the rare occasion, and again, this will resonate with somebody listening, the very rare occasion where a candidate isn't exclusive, but they maybe have spoken to another rec a month ago, 2 months ago, whatever, and we brief them on a client, we know we've got permission, we follow the disclaimer process, you know, we get them to send confirmation we've approached them, we find out that the CV's been sent by another rec, we know hand on heart that was without their permission every single time, every time.
Because you've got a process, protocols or whatever you want to call it, that just, I mean, there's lots of reasons, there are lots of reasons to have them. You touched on differentiators and stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Actually, that's one of my other P's. That's the D, but it's a different word.
It's an upside down P.
Yes, exactly. Put in suspense about that one. Yeah, processes are really important. So I spend a lot of my time coaching, actually, not training. It's not transfer of knowledge. It's the implementation of that, and it's picking apart, and it's performance coaching that enables them to grow, getting those additional 1% and 5% out of them in various different parts of what they're doing. And I love that, because it's like fine-tuning a piano, you know, it's like creating, I think of it more like a blueprint, really, because it's not linear, is it? You know, I mean, recruitment's just, it's all over the place. But everybody has a blueprint, and there is a blueprint for successful recruiters. And then some people have everyone has one, they just don't know whether they don't know they've got it sometimes. And these kind of instinctive recruiters who are great, but ask them to tell you how they do what they do, and they won't be able to tell you because it's instinctive. So I spend a lot of time creating blueprints for top billers, and then looking at people who maybe aren't billing as much as they could or should, and looking at their blueprint and then improving their blueprints. So just rewriting their blueprints, and looking at things like their processes, their systems, measurement, because you can't manage what you can't measure. So I am a big fan of KPIs, not the let's hit them with a stick type, but the let's reverse engineer the process and calculate it based on probabilities. And then once you've done that, again, that's just becomes more predictable. It becomes more controllable. A lot of this job is what if, isn't it? Well, what if that happens? What if this doesn't happen?
It's all consequences. We're predicting consequences. I was talking to a friend about it, and I said, that is, because I said something about psychology, and I said, because their daughter's going to do psychology at university, and I said, well, you speak to any recruiter, and we are actually unqualified psychologists, because, and she went, what? And I think she took umbrage because she's in the medical profession. And I said, no, I'm being serious, because the whole process of recruitment is predicting next step, what someone's going to do next. And you're trying to circumnavigate the different outcomes before they've even happened, or before the person even knows that's what's going to happen. And she went, I never really thought of it like that. I think people think we just literally send a CV and get a job.
Some recruiters do. You know, some recruiters do. I will name check now.
No one listening to this does that, I hope.
No, exactly. Don't order take. You know, you'll be taken over by the machines in 5 years if you order taking.
A year, never mind 5 years.
Well, yeah, this is true. Yeah. I was talking to Ian Nelson earlier on. Hi, Ian, my
Hi.
work husband, our work husband. And yeah, we were talking about technology and how, you know, will it be the death of recruitment? No, nothing's the death of recruitment. It'll be the death of transactional recruitment. But then none of the stuff we're talking about is about being transactional. You know,
No.
this is about pushing back and being consultative. Which leads me to my, I don't know, fourth. I've messed up the numbers now. Maths is not my strong point. This is why I married an accountant. Point number 4 is positioning. So this sounds really odd. Like, so positioning yourself in your market is really important. A, because it helps you to differentiate yourself, but it gives you a greater sense of purpose. So it goes back into the whole, it feeds the machine. If you're going out there, I often say to people, why are you scared of phoning clients? Why are you scared of phoning candidates? Why are you not pushing back when you're taking that job order and saying, you're probably not going to get that for that salary. What about if we look at this? Why aren't you going with options and solutions and stuff? Because it's not training them to do it differently. It's understanding why they're doing it like that in the first place. And a lot of the times it's their identity is set at, I send CVs to job orders. They're not positioned in the marketplace as anything other than a transactional recruiter. They don't see themselves as business consultants or problem solvers or recruitment partners.
No.
So positioning is massive. When we do work with our clients at iIntro, the biggest thing we talk about is planning and positioning. But positioning is key. There are no unique selling points unless you're going to give a caravan away with every vacancy added. That's unique, weird, very northern. For those who aren't in the north, that's the thing up here. That's what we do. Use caravans as leverage.
No, but I think you're right. And I think if I just bring that scenario that I just gave as an example into the conversation, how you perceive yourself and how you position yourself to your external customer base is paramount to how they then perceive your service.
Yes,
So
and how you perceive yourself as well.
But it starts with how you perceive yourself. And if you see yourself as an industry expert, as knowledgeable, as valuable, as credible, and you position yourself like that, you are more likely to be able to sell retained services. You are more likely to attract the best candidates in your market, and you are more likely to be more successful than if you go, all I do is send CVs. I'm just a telesalesperson. It's like, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not going to get you anywhere. So you've got to position yourself. Now, if you are a business, you can make it really easy for your guys by doing all these things, charting the course, setting out the plan, giving them good processes and systems, but helping them to differentiate themselves, helping them to feel really proud, you know, of the fact that this is what I do for a living. They become ambassadors for the industry then. And then when they are going out and they're not just going out in order to pick up a job. You know, what's your objective for this call? Oh, to get a job. Well, how do you know if you even want a job off that person?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think the whole positioning thing lends itself really well to then creating an identity, which creates a set of behaviors that then creates a set of actions, blah, 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 that then means that people are just going out there with a level of confidence and conviction and a more consultative approach, basically.
Love it.
Which then kind of brings me to the next thing, which is there is a level of kind of you were talking about psychology before. There is, absolutely. That begins with a P. So we'll have that.
It does. Yes, it does.
On my desk at any point. We're dealing with people at the end of the day. There's processes and people. Don't get those two things mixed up. You can influence one and you can control the other, and that's about it. You can't control people, so we need to stop trying to do that. And I think that's, again, where we get our heads sort of screwed on the wrong way round. So we can talk about psychology. You were talking earlier on about stoicism, being quite philosophical about it. Again, that comes from, if you're resilient, you kind of know what you can control and what you can't control. Yeah. And the final one that I was going to talk about is a twofold one. That's why there's two P's. So persistence, you've got to be persistent. Now, you've got to be persistent, but you've got to have patience at the same time. There is no instant gratification in this job. And if that's what you're in it for, then I'd go and do something else. Yeah. There was a reason why they call it building a desk or growing a network. Those two words are really important, build and grow. It takes a while. It's going to take hard work. But if you do it right and often enough, then you'll see the fruits of your labor. But you have to be persistent. So persistence comes from having levels of resilience enough that enable you to go out and do something and try something and not worry if it goes wrong. Just see that as an opportunity to do it a different way next time.
Absolutely.
So you don't win, you learn, all that kind of stuff. And that whole kind of growth mindset piece is really important for that. And knowing that everything is a journey, it's all about the effort put in, and it's all about trialing and experimenting. So I would say, particularly around the BD piece, if people are going out there and they're scared to do BD, think about it as a series of tiny experiments that you're going to do in your marketplace to see which ones work or not.
Absolutely.
Totally. Our brain doesn't like the idea of failure, but it doesn't mind the idea of experiment, trials, and things like that.
You're reframing how you're positioning it. And I think that is very hard. If we segue back to the start of the conversation around that resilience, I think that is what underpins it. It's that reframing of, this isn't, something that is going to make you fail. This is a way that you learn. It's a way to understand how to express yourself within your industry, because every industry has its own nuances. But this P plan, as we're going to call it, I don't know if you've called it the P plan, but the P plan is so relevant to every single, not just recruiter and leader, but actually in life, that I hope you have trademarked it. Because if you haven't, I really think you should.
What do I do? Do I send it to the king? Do I post it to the king? Is that what I do? The only last thing I'm going to say about persistence is that this whole idea of bounce back ability is the ability to get back from rejections. And we get rejections a lot in recruitment. And one of the other things you don't need to do, which kind of begins with a P, is don't take stuff personally. If you've got a purpose and a plan and you've positioned yourself, you're not going to be able to help everybody anyway. Some will, some won't. So what next? If they don't want your help, go and help somebody else. And see rejection as an opportunity for redirection rather than rejection. It's not rejection. And I think when you've got low level resilience, you take it all on, don't you?
But at the very heart, but to me, this goes right back to that first point of purpose, that if you are driven in recruitment by your own personal goal to make money and to make as many placements as possible, you'll never endure during the challenging markets. So I think if your purpose is that I don't want to say simple, is that binary, you're just not going to make it. But if your purpose is to become the best in your industry, for me, my purpose was to have an inbound business of recruiters that wanted a covert approach and didn't want to have to go on job boards and didn't want to have to go and speak to 10 people. That was my purpose, to have this safe space for recruitment people. It was never about me. It's not about me. It's not about my gain. It's about curating this whole purpose for everybody else. And I think it all comes back to that, Jo. And I think that even though we've wedded it throughout, people might think it's a distraction. I genuinely think that these references we're making to the likes of Ryan Holiday and the psychology books, actually, if you want to become a truly holistic business professional, you need to read more. You don't need to read. You can go on Audible. I personally like to read a proper book. You can listen to so many broad podcasts. You can go on TikTok and watch these guys. You can go on YouTube. But I think understanding the broader picture of why we as recruiters are here in such a complex, like you say, complex industry, but at the very heart of what drives us, it's all these P's that you've talked about. I think we would have less people in the market, but better people in the market, and we would be perceived better as an industry by people externally. That's my conclusion of what we've talked about today.
Yes, exactly. And to go back to purpose, I came out of recruitment into training because I wanted to help to make the industry a better place and to help the perception of the recruitment industry to be improved. And that's still going on 20 years later, So it's never, I don't think it'll go away, but yeah, these things are there to help. And, general resilience, just breathe, meditate, do things that make your soul happy, drink lots of water and get good sleep.
Oh, sleep underpins everything. That's a whole different podcast. Jo, I can see why we've always had double episodes off you, because we could carry on for another hour, but sadly I've got another guest on shoot soon. You are incredible. We will make sure that there are links to your book, of which you're part of, which we've not even talked about that, sorry, but we'll make sure there's links on there. We've got links to your training, to your iIntro, And anything else, the Hummingbird Project as well, we'll make sure if people want to have a look at that, please go and have a look at Jo's profile on LinkedIn. And if you want to ask her any more questions around these P's or anything, drop her a message. Remember to mention the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And we are so grateful to you, Jo. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.